I knew something had shifted when no one looked up as I walked in. Not even Emily, who always smiled small, tired, but sincere. Her hands were gripping a mug that I recognized as mine. I noticed a faint lipstick mark on the rim. Not mine. The office air felt thick, like a room recently vacated of truth. I placed my bag beneath my desk, opened the project folder out of habit, then paused. The Apex briefing still sat in the center, perfectly tabbed, annotated in ink only I ever used faint green fountain. No one asked for it. At 8:47, Linda from HR stepped in. Her heels tapped a rhythm I hadn't heard in years morning termination. She moved too quickly past me, clutching a slim manila folder. Department Head's Conference Room B. Mandatory, someone muttered near the coffee machine. I wasn't invited. Still, I walked in. Everyone was already seated when I arrived. Caroline stood near the head of the table, spine straight, arms relaxed like this had been rehearsed. My team clustered together. Eyes flickered, then dropped. No one moved to make room. I stood. We're restructuring, Caroline began, but not to me. Effective immediately. Rachel Whitmore will be leaving the company. No one gasped. That was worse. As you all know, we're setting new performance standards. Some adjustments had to be made. Emily's hand moved to her mouth, but stopped short. Nathan didn't look at me at all. Only Linda met my eyes. I nodded once. That was all. I hope the client presentation goes well tomorrow. Caroline blinked. What presentation? A pause. The Apex Strategy Review, I answered. 10 o'clock. Jonathan Blake. Full board attendance. 6 months of positioning work. You'll find the deck on the server. A crease appeared between her brows, then vanished behind a smile that never touched her eyes. I'm sure we'll manage. I picked up my planner, left the pen. No one followed. No one called after me. The folder remained unopened on the table. What I remember most wasn't the silence, but the noise that didn't come. No protest, no explanation, not even my name spoken aloud. They'd managed to erase me without raising their voices. I thought if I stayed late it would mean something. The spreadsheet, with color-coded margins. The summary email rewritten 3 times to strike the right tone. The extra slide I added on Tuesday because I remembered Caroline preferred data grouped by quarter, not by campaign. None of it made much difference. I brought her coffee once by accident. She took it, didn't look up, left the cup half-finished on the edge of her desk. The ring it left behind stayed for weeks. I think she's just under pressure, I said during a team check-in. Let's give her some room. No one disagreed, but no one nodded either. When she redirected a proposal I drafted, stripped the header, changed the font, sent it off without my name, I rewrote the next one more carefully, labeled every section, cited every source. The final version still went out unsigned. She's trying to bring structure, I told Nathan. It's not personal. She cancelled 3 of our one-on-one meetings in a row. Let's keep things agile, her assistant explained. The 4th meeting wasn't scheduled. During the strategy review, she interrupted me halfway through a sentence. Let's not overcomplicate it, she said. I folded my hands in my lap, waited. The sentence never found its ending. She probably doesn't know how we run things yet. I offered after the call. There's a learning curve. The team went silent. I covered her gaps when she assigned weekend work without timelines, took the pressure off Julia, who had childcare, drafted the campaign summary myself and sent it under the group name. Why do you keep excusing her? Emily asked over lunch one day. She's new, that's all. You think she'd do the same for you? That was the first time I didn't answer right away. I started rereading old project decks late at night. looking for anything I'd missed, any sign that I'd made myself too invisible. But the notes were clear, the work consistent. My name was always on the first page. Now, I wonder if that's what made me expendable. Not the quality of the work, but how quietly I handed it over. I used to believe that cooperation looked like silence, like flexibility, like stepping back so others could step forward. I hadn't realized how easy it is to erase someone who never insisted on being seen. It's strange how absence has a shape of its own. The quarterly review slides were mine font, spacing color scheme phrasing. I recognized the line about market sentiment because I wrote it in the margins of a notebook during a train ride back from Minneapolis. Caroline presented them without edits. Her voice never broke rhythm. "Excellent breakdown," William said toward the end. "Sharp insights." She smiled, a practiced kind of smile, then turned to the next slide. I watched the back of her jacket wrinkle slightly as she shifted weight. My name didn't surface. Not once. Later that week, she organized a team appreciation lunch in the upstairs lounge. Emily brought back a piece of cake for me in a paper napkin, vanilla with raspberry filling already drying at the edges. "There weren't enough chairs," she murmured. I found the event flyer pinned to the bulletin board by the kitchenette. My name wasn't on the invite list. Even interns were there. "She must have assumed you were busy," Julia said. Or maybe she wanted to celebrate the new hires. I deleted the calendar invite Caroline had sent the same day budget alignment, 2:30 p.m. conference room A. Just me and her. No one else attended. She never showed up. The strangest thing wasn't being excluded. It was how quietly it happened. No slammed doors, no confrontations, just omissions. "She's got to focus on scalable leadership," someone muttered during an elevator ride. "Not individual recognition." "Rachel still handles Apex, though," another voice added. The first one laughed, low, clipped. "For now." I once tried to clarify in a meeting. "I believe the original structure was built with vertical segmentation," I began. "We've moved past that," Caroline cut in. "We're thinking holistically now." She kept her eyes on the whiteboard as she erased what I had just written. I didn't finish my sentence. In old notebooks, I used to sign my initials in the corner of each project sketch, a small mark, almost a habit. I stopped doing that sometime around February. Somewhere along the way, I began speaking less, listening more, waiting for a pause that never came. What lingered wasn't being overlooked, it was being remembered only in plural. The team, the group, the campaign, even the compliments blurred. I learned that you can be present in every step of the work and still vanish from the room where it's praised. Some things only lose their shape when someone else tries to carry them. The slides I had built were intact, fonts, preserved headers, aligned visuals, sharp, but none of it made sense anymore. The transitions didn't land. The phrasing turned flat. The strategy, once layered and alive, felt gutted. "They're prepping for the Apex presentation," Emily told me. "Caroline wants to pivot toward cost savings instead of positioning. She thinks the value proposition needs softening. She doesn't understand what they bought into." I didn't reply. Jonathan called 3 times that day. I didn't answer the first 2. On the third, I let it ring through my hands. He left a voicemail. No frustration, just one sentence. "Is there a reason you're not in the loop?" The air in my apartment felt still, like something had just stepped out of it. The proposal packet lay unopened on the table. I ran my fingers along its sealed edge the way I used to touch documents I wasn't ready to submit. "They're saying everything is documented," Emily texted again. "They think the deck will carry itself. I glanced at the shelf above my desk. A paperweight shaped like a compass, a gift from Jonathan 2 years ago. The inscription read, "For navigating what others overlook." I had kept it there without noticing how much it meant until now. "They need clarification on the security insight section." Emily sent a final message. "She's asking where your source data came from." They had my language, not my understanding. The words were still there, just empty. They didn't know how the client's CTO preferred tables over charts, or that Jonathan liked the security analysis last, because he wanted to leave every meeting with worst-case scenarios already addressed. They didn't know because I hadn't written those things down. I had lived them. Once, Caroline told me over coffee, strategy is interchangeable. The client doesn't care who delivers it. I didn't argue. I stirred the foam in my cup until the swirl disappeared. Now I know they never wanted my name, just my architecture. What they kept at was the structure. What they lost was the spine. And what I saw clearer than ever was that I was never missing. I was removed. And that difference carries a weight no slide could measure. Some exits happen with applause. Mine happened with formatting. The request from Michael arrived just before sunset. "We'd appreciate your presence tomorrow morning. Apex is expecting continuity." No apology, no explanation, just corporate necessity in a crisp subject line. I didn't reply. I just read it with steady hands and let the inbox swallow it. Instead, I opened a blank document. The notes came easily, almost automatically. 6 years of memory distilled. I listed each executive's core concerns in the order they typically voiced them. I noted which slides triggered questions, which buzzwords Jonathan once called empty, which color schemes, Susan said, reminded her of older tech competitors. I didn't editorialize. I didn't hint at ownership. The document had no title, just bullet points. When it was done, I attached it to an email addressed to Emily. I didn't write anything in the body. I didn't sign my name. I pressed send and closed my laptop without waiting for the screen to refresh. 10 minutes later, she responded, "You didn't have to do this." That was the only sentence. I didn't answer. Jonathan tried calling again that night. I answered not because I wanted to, but because avoiding him started to feel performative. Caroline won't give me a straight answer. "Is this permanent? I'm not with Horizon anymore." They didn't say that. They'll manage. He let out a breath that sounded like the beginning of another sentence, but didn't finish it. I didn't help him. There was a black binder clip on my desk, old, slightly rusted at the hinge. I used it every quarter when printing client briefs. It held together years of planning without complaint. I clipped it onto the notes I printed out for myself, then placed the packet into a drawer I didn't plan to reopen. I didn't forward anything to Caroline. I didn't blind copy Michael. I didn't leak, warn, or justify. I let the structure stand without scaffolding. They'll deliver the presentation. They might even land the account. But when they speak, the tone will be off by degrees, like a familiar melody hummed by someone who only knows the chorus. That won't be my failure. It won't be my name. Some rooms feel like they've been waiting for you to notice them. I boiled water slowly that morning, watching the surface tremble before the first bubble. The kettle, a housewarming gift from my sister I had never unboxed, finally hummed. The coffee grounds were older than I remembered. Still, I opened the bag and let the smell settle into the corners of the kitchen. No one needed a reply. No calendar buzzed. I sat at the small table by the window and let the mug warm both hands. A chipped handle pressed against my thumb, something I'd never noticed before. It didn't matter. I drank slowly without scanning for unread flags in my inbox. The closet came next. Rows of heels I hadn't worn in a year. a navy dress with a broken zipper I'd always meant to fix, name badges from conferences I no longer remembered attending. I folded what I could, bagged the rest, and set it by the door. There was a blazer with a coffee stain behind the left cuff. I held it for a while, thumb on the faded fabric. I remembered the meeting the moment the spill. No one had commented on it that day. I wore it again anyway. The shelves were easier. I dusted the books I used to annotate with sticky notes, books I once quoted in meetings to fill silences no one else wanted to break. Some still had folded pages. I unfolded them, then smoothed them flat. Helen called just before noon. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was brief. "Things don't break without reason," her voice said. "Don't waste time gluing them back." The message played only once. I didn't save it. I didn't delete it, either. By late afternoon, I found an old spiral notebook at the back of my filing drawer. No cover pages, curled pen bleeding through from years ago. My handwriting was smaller, then neater. I'd titled the first page, "What Makes a Strategy Breathe." Underneath it, not data alone, not control. It needs to be heard first, then believed. I ran my finger under each line. No edits. No red ink. I didn't know then that I was writing something I'd one day need to return to, not as proof of knowledge, but of self. I closed the notebook, placed it on the windowsill, and left it there. Not everything needed to be filed away. Everything. Some things are better left visible, even when no one else is looking. Some people only remember your name when it becomes an obstacle. Emily's message arrived late. Apex won't move forward unless you're listed as strategic lead. No greeting, no emoji, just plain weighty text. I reread it twice, then locked the screen. The next morning, my phone rang before I'd finished my tea. Michael's voice came through with the softness of someone carefully avoiding certain words. "There may have been procedural ambiguity. We'd like to discuss a return if you're open." He didn't mention what had happened, only what needed to happen now. No apology, just alignment. I didn't answer right away. The steam from my cup had already faded. Then Caroline's email came. Subject, re-engagement discussion. She called the termination an unfortunate internal lapse during structural adjustments. She wrote, "We recognize your previous involvement and would appreciate your insight going forward." She didn't use the words strategy, ownership, or wrong. And certainly not Rachel. I opened the file attached to her email. It was the Apex deck, my layout, my phrasing, but some slides had been rearranged, others removed. Page 8 had a new chart irrelevant out of context and badly labeled. The kind of data mistake no one on my team would have made. The phone rang again that afternoon. This time, Jonathan. "We've had internal conversations," he said. "We want you, not the agency. Will you come on as independent counsel?" He didn't talk about loyalty. He didn't reference the past, just the deal on the table, the one they couldn't finalize without me. I closed the laptop. In my drawer, I found an old access badge from Horizon. The edges were worn, the clip slightly bent. I turned it over, ran my thumb across the barcode, and placed it back face down. They weren't offering return. They were offering repair. Image of revenue, of relationships. But not of trust. No one said, "You mattered." No one said, "We saw what was done." What they said was, "We need you to fix this." What they meant was, "We didn't think you'd take your value with you." I didn't respond that day, not from bitterness, not even from pride, only because I finally knew silence could stand up taller than any explanation. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. I started using pen again, not for to-do lists or margin notes, but for full thoughts written longhand in a lined notebook with a fabric cover. The kind they sell near the checkout counter, never meant to last more than a few seasons. The ink sank into the paper slower than I expected, like it had been waiting. My workspace was a corner table near the window at a shared cafe downtown. No nameplate, no badge, just a chipped cup, a folded laptop, and a folded version of myself slowly being unfolded again. I took the Apex contract, but on my terms. Independent limited engagement, direct communication, no intermediaries, no office politics. We'd prefer if you were listed as an outside partner, the project coordinator mentioned. It's cleaner that way. No confusion? Clean. I hadn't heard that word used for boundaries before. I didn't correct her. The mornings felt different. I read industry briefs with a highlighter not to prepare for meetings, but because I wanted to understand what I missed while running at full speed. I paused over an article on emotional intelligence in leadership and underlined one sentence twice. Presence is not the same as performance. People began reaching out. A message from a former intern. I remember something you told me during our one-to-one. I still use it. A request from a community college. Would you be open to speaking with our graduating class? An editor from a niche journal. We'd love a short column on trust and transition. I didn't say yes to all of it. I also didn't delete them right away. My calendar was still full, but no longer stacked. There were gaps between calls, between deadlines, enough space to hear myself think. I wore jeans to my first client review. No one blinked. No one asked where I came from. They asked what I thought. At lunch, I opened a drawer of old stationery and found a pack of business cards I never handed out. I looked at the title beneath my name. Director Client Strategy. A role I had shaped, defended, and outgrown. I set the card down without tearing it. Some identities don't need to be discarded, only gently set aside to make room for the one that finally fits. Letting go doesn't always look like walking away. Sometimes it's as quiet as not replying. The draft had waited in my inbox for days. I rewrote the second paragraph 3 times before deleting it entirely. I kept the subject line short. Thank you for the opportunity. The message itself was no longer than 6 lines. I didn't mention what had happened. I didn't request clarification or suggest a future meeting. I wrote, I've chosen to move forward elsewhere. I appreciate what I learned during my time at Horizon. I wish the team continued success. I lined my full name. No title. I printed the letter on thick paper, the kind I once reserved for resumes and contracts. I placed it in a plain white envelope, sealed it without ceremony, and left it at the front desk of the office tower, where I used to badge in before sunrise. The security guard recognized me. Back with us. No, I replied, just dropping something off. His nod was polite, uncertain. I didn't offer more. Back home, I cleared my email of all internal distribution lists, marketing executive, cross-functional. The folders emptied quickly. A few stragglers remained archived agendas, scheduling notes, chain messages titled RE Client Scope. I deleted them one by one. The trash folder emptied in under a minute. The final group chat pinged at noon. A message from someone I barely knew. Anyone have Rachel's notes from Q4 last year? No one answered. I clicked leave conversation without a word. By afternoon, I called my service provider. The voice on the other end was cheerful. Just to confirm you're switching to a personal plan? Yes. Would you like to keep your number? No. I let the pause stretch long enough for her to check again. You're sure? I'm sure. That evening, I scrolled through my contacts. Some names I hadn't dialed in months. Others had never called me, not once. A few were saved only by initials or department tags. I deleted them all. When the screen turned blank, I didn't feel anything particular. Just stillness. I didn't announce my decision. I didn't forward my new number. No signature line. No bounce-back email. Some closures aren't loud. They're not performative. They just happen fully quietly when you no longer need to be found. Peace has no entrance music. It arrives in small, unhurried ways. The kettle clicked off. I hadn't rushed to fill it. I hadn't even meant to drink tea, but the scent of dried chamomile from the jar nudged me into the motion. I let it steep, without checking the time. The corner of my notebook still had the faint stain from a pen that once bled through during a late-night proposal. I left it there. Today's page was clean soft under my hand. I wrote with a fountain pen not for elegance, but because it slowed me down. My handwriting had changed. It curved less, like I was trying to fit too much in too little space. The blog post was addressed to no one in particular. Just a letter I might have needed once. They may strike your name off the record, but they can't erase the integrity you build in silence. The tea cooled next to me. I didn't reach for it right away. A brown envelope sat unopened on the other side of the table. Apex's offer, a formal proposal, their logo embossed. I knew what was inside Director of Internal Strategy, with autonomy to build the team from scratch. My terms. My timing. No one at Horizon had spoken my name out loud since I left. That used to sting. Now it didn't register. Last week my mother called. Not to ask how I was doing, only to say, "You've always been too sensitive about work." I didn't argue. I thanked her for checking in. Then I changed the subject to the new gardenia she'd planted. I hadn't told anyone about the Apex offer, not even Helen. Not because I was hiding it, but because, for once, I didn't need applause or approval. A soft beam of light hit the edge of the window. I watched it settle onto the armrest, a tiny bloom of brightness, patient and unnoticed. I lifted the tea to my lips, held the warmth between sips. There was nothing urgent pulling at me. No red circle flashing on my phone, no deadlines knotted into my chest. The pen lay still on the notebook, the final line unfinished. I could return to it later, or not. For the first time in years, I wasn't proving anything, not competing, not fixing, just breathing, and somehow, without permission or announcement, I'd arrived.